Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting on New Age MBA lessons from an old age MBA holder with Mr. Nikhil Gumbhir. Um, just a quick introduction about Mr. Nikhil Gumbhir. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Harappa Education, and he's been building Harappa Education for customer success and delivery to help learners across corporate campus, students as well as senior leaders to develop their leadership skills. Nikhil has been with us for almost 4 years now, since the early stages of Harappa. And in today's workshop and in today's meeting, we will be listening more about Nikhil's experience of doing an MBA at the Indian School of Business and his interesting learning experiences of online learning with different organizations. And, we would like all of you to also participate in today's meeting so that this could be more interactive. Feel free to ask any questions, and we'll take it forward from there. Thank you. Over to you, Nikhil.
Thanks, Tanvi. Good evening, everyone. I'm assuming you're calling in from India, so good evening. And we had specifically designed this for a meeting format such that we'd be able to see everyone, and we try and make this a little more intimate. So if you are in a position to switch on your cameras, that'll be great. And thanks, Harit. Thanks for joining in, and thanks for switching on your camera. But for the others, if you can, that'll be nice. It's going to be a intimate sort of discussion, a warm discussion. So faces obviously help. So just wanted to put that out there. New age MBA lessons from an old age MBA holder. Well, firstly, I'm not that old. I don't know why that sort of description has come in, but for whatever it's worth, I'm happy to spend time today sharing my experiences with you. So the way we've designed this, it's a 1-hour session, and certainly would love for this to be as interactive as possible. And while I have put some slides together, and we'll walk you through a small agenda to give you a sense of both the MBA experience as well as some of the online learning experiences. But feel free to come in with questions while we have a Q&A section at the end. At any point, if there is a question, please feel free to come in, any comment. We'd love for this to be as interactive as possible, hence the meeting point, right? Before we get started, would love to know where each of you is calling in from, and maybe in the chat you can just put your location. It'll be nice to know where all of you are, just so we know what's the representation like. Okay, Harit, you're from Bangalore. Wonderful. Bangalore is my hometown. So anybody who says they're from Bangalore, I'm like, oh my God, I need to go back to Bangalore. I'm not in Bangalore right now. I'm in Delhi. Okay, Anaga is from Mumbai. Kavita from Noida. Vinayak from Mumbai. Okay, wonderful. Those who've just joined in, if you can just mention where you're from, it'll be nice to just get a sense which location. So Noida, Mumbai, Bangalore, other locations. Super. Thank you. Lucknow. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, Ankit. Good to see the North being represented. Super. Okay. The other question that I have before we actually jump in is if you were to pay somebody to do some work, right now, most of us kind of get paid to work. That's just, how the world works. We're either salaried or, we run a business, etc. And, we get paid for it. But if you had to pay somebody to do some work, what would that work be? Right? I'm trying to get a sense of where each of your passion lies. And if you had to pay somebody to do some kind of work, what would that work be? So again, you can unmute and talk about it if you'd like. You can put it in the chat. So for example, in my case, if somebody was to pay me, if I was to pay somebody to do work, it would probably be the opportunity of setting up a learning center with a cafe, probably in a place like Goa, with the opportunity for people to come and learn and eat and interact with each other, and a whole different style of learning. I would certainly pay somebody to give me that chance. But that's just my example. So would love to hear from you, and then we'll obviously dive into the session. Yes, Harit, go for it.
So Nikhil, it's a very insightful question right there. What I would pay someone to do is to teach better in the new age method, which is more applicable to the real world, which I'm yet to see it in the current traditional schooling, at least till K-12.
Okay, super. Thanks so much for that. Wonderful. Anybody else? You can also put it in the chat. And there's a reason for this question, not a random question. We'll come back to why I asked you this question at some point in the session. But feel free to add. I think Anaga says learning center as well. Okay, wonderful to hear that. We should team up separately on that opportunity. Anybody else wants to add to that? What would you pay somebody for to work?
Maybe I'll ask to set up a proper area with the right set of acoustics in terms of setting the sound bars or all the music systems that are associated, to have some sort of meditation room for people to come and join whenever they are they wanted to enjoy that time for the specific amount of time for meditation.
Right. Okay, wonderful. That sounds lovely. Essentially a room for meditation. Is that what you're saying, Vinayak?
Yeah, room for meditation. So with right set of acoustics, actually, like with right set of sounds and probably display units if required.
Interesting. Nice. Wonderful. Anybody else wants to just mention what they would pay somebody for to work? No? Okay. As and when you, if you do like to, please put in the chat. Now, the reason I asked you this question is, and we'll talk about it as we move along, is, MBA, no MBA, accelerated MBA, decelerated MBA, learning online, learning offline. We're in a state in the world where there's so much changing that at the end of the day, what's really going to matter is, what you as an individual really care about. And I'll touch upon this. At least in my journey, that's what really mattered. And there were various moments in my life where I had to take very conscious decisions about doing something for the sake of doing something, and doing something because I personally believed in it and I personally had a passion for it. And, they were not easy decisions, but when I look back now, I can certainly say they've really worked out. So, we'll touch upon this, but just a starting point to know that irrespective of the program that you end up doing, what matters even more is a sense of purpose on why you actually want to work and what you want to work on. And we'll talk about how different programs can help you understand and get clarity on that as we move ahead. Super. Okay, so Tanvi, my request you to please put up the slides, and we'll spend the first 15-20 minutes just walking through some slides, but then we'll open it up for questions. But again, feel free to come in through this. Anybody else wants to share their passion for what they would like to do? You're most welcome. So again, come in. Yeah. Tanvi, should we put up the slides? Okay, super. So while Tanvi is putting up the slides, this is what I thought we could cover in today's session as some sort of an agenda. First, really want to talk about, the changing world of work. And, I've been working now for the last 15, 17 years in the industry, and have seen, obviously, the world of work significantly change in these 15 years. But I've also done a little research of how the world of work has changed from the 15th century, 16th century. I've seen my grandparents go through what work looked like, my parents, and so on, right? So touching a little bit about what does work even mean in today's context and where it's going. My sort of MBA experience, which is I went to the Indian School of Business. So I'd love to talk about that, which is the old age MBA holder in that. I've also had the experience of significantly learning online, and I'd love to spend some time talking about that, which are the alternative online experiences that I've gone through, a range of programs, both in India and across the world, and really a contrast between both. And I'd love to touch upon those. My thoughts on, what will really matter most for a career in the 21st century. This is just my views, and we can definitely debate this. And of course, questions that any of you have at the end or any time in between, right? So super. So let's just jump in first I want to talk about this graph, which is really the fact that human progress essentially is exponential, and that what that means is I'm going to give you a small metric called the time to shock. Okay, the time it takes for people to get shocked. Just keep that in mind, right? So essentially, human beings came onto this planet maybe 200,000 years ago, right? Roughly, right? That's pretty long back. And Homo sapiens, which is our sort of beings, came into this planet about 80,000 years ago, right? Now, if you picked up a person who was present in 80,000 years ago, let's call that person Harit, for example. If there was a gentleman named Harit 80,000 years ago, when we pick up that person from 80,000 years ago and put him into, let's say, 70,000, 60,000, 50,000, 40,000, 30,000, that person wouldn't really have gotten shocked, because the world hadn't changed much between the year 80,000 years ago and maybe 50, 60,000 years ago. But if you had picked up Harit from 80,000 years ago and put him in the year 20,000 years ago, right, he would have gotten shocked, because 80,000 years ago it was all about hunting, gathering food, figuring out how to survive in the wild. And 20,000 years ago is when agriculture really came about. So he would have gotten shocked to say, oh my God, I'm now in a world where we're domesticating animals, and we're kind of putting, barricades around our houses, where we're actually growing our own vegetables and growing our own sort of food, etc. We would have gotten shocked in this world, right? So it took someone 60,000 years to get shocked. That's a lot of time, which means for 60,000 years, the world didn't change, okay? Now, if you take the same person who was present 20,000 years ago in this world of agriculture, and when agriculture was really came about, for that person to actually have gotten shocked, they would have had to, even if they continued to remain, if you had brought them forward, let's say 19,000 years ago, right? Let's say in the year 1000, in the year 1100, in the year 1200, 1300, 1400, the world actually hadn't changed so much. Maybe the year 1000, right? So it would have taken somebody 19,000 years to actually get shocked. So you can see that the time to getting shocked is actually coming down. 60,000 first, 19,000 or 20,000 second, right? Now, if you picked up a person in the year 1200 or 1300, and brought them forward, right, for them to have gotten shocked, they would have probably gotten shocked. Not much change, 1200, 1300, 1400, it was the world with sort of, societies coming in. There was obviously a lot of change, lots of wars being fought. I guess in the year 1700 is when things really changed from a technology standpoint, the first industrial revolution and so on, right? So probably take someone, about about 800, 900 years to actually have gotten shocked. So you can see it's 60,000, then 20,000, then maybe 800 years, right? Now, since the year 1700, there's been exponential change taking place, right? From the year 1700, probably 18, 19, 1900 is probably when somebody would have gotten shocked, because that's when the car was invented, the automobile was invented, and somebody in the year 1700 may not have really sort of been in a car and experienced that world. So 200 years was the time to get shocked. Then you come to the year 1900, and from 1900, let's say the person would have gotten shocked from, let's say, 1900 to 1970, which is when the computer was invented, right? Say, oh my God, from the world of just a basic automobile, basic steam engine, basic sort of machines, I have the opportunity of working with a computer. And if you now look at 1950, in some ways, you can very much say that the person from 1950 would be shocked in today's world, right? Just because of the rate at which, technology has exploded with AI and data and so on, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that we live in a world which is just accelerating at a dramatic pace, right? Probably, if you ask me, if you pick up somebody from today, probably 10, 15 years, and they'd probably get shocked, right? The world would probably be different, right? So I think that's the first thing that we need to keep in mind, that we're living in a very different world, and the kind of abilities that we need to have to be able to kind of navigate this world is very different from the time we had to navigate it, let's say, 80,000, 20,000 years ago, or even in the year 1900, right? So that's just one point I wanted to quickly cover. Let's go ahead as part of the second piece. Okay, how is the cycle of work really changing, right? So if you look at the left, and this is really the kind of career that my parents may have had, their grandparents may have, not even my grandparents, my parents probably would have had, right? You basically try and complete education until the year 25. You probably have 2 jobs in your life and you retire, right? Like you retire at the age of 75 and you have maybe 1 or 2 careers, right? 2 jobs at best. Today, that's a very different world, and you can see that on the right, which is that you complete 1 cycle of education, which is until 25, and then you're just continuing to move into different kinds of roles, responsibilities. Education doesn't stop at the age of 25. It in fact accelerates after that, and the number of pivots that one has to take in one's career significantly increases, right? You may not even retire at 75 in that year. Today, people are talking about a 100-year career life and so on, right? So that's the reality, that with so much change, one also is changing careers and changing jobs so much, right? I think that's the second sort of piece on just the future of work. Okay, this is an interesting one. This is really the element of the half-life of a skill, right? So if you look at the year 1975, if you had a skill, that skill would have lasted you 15 years. Matlab, you're sorted, right? Like you had 1 skill, you could have just been in that 1 job 15 years, grown up the managerial ladder, and felt very happy and moved on, right? You could be ignorant about how the world was going, and nobody, you'd be better off in some ways. Obviously, this is a slightly dated chart, but this is 2015. This doesn't even include COVID and others. But clearly here, the half-life of a skill has now fallen to 3 years. Today in the technology domain, it's probably just a year, even a year and a half, right? So that's just to tell you a sense of how, today's skills are becoming even more redundant. So this is an interesting analogy on the right? If you had the skill of being a carriage driver, right? That skill would have lasted you 3,500 or 3,800 years. You could have used that 1 skill to drive a carriage for almost 4,000 years, right? And if in some ways you were a taxi driver, right, when the world of taxis came in, in the early 1900s, that skill would have lasted you 120 years, because we just had Uber coming in 7 years ago, right? So your whole sort of life got disrupted as a taxi driver. And if you're an Uber driver, well, God knows when self-driving cars are going to come in. But the wager is, that skill probably is about 7 to 10 years, right? So again, just to give you a sense of the fact that today's skills are just the half-life of a skill is significantly coming down, and we have to kind of just be aware of how do we pace ourselves with so much change, right? So what does that really mean? If some of you've seen this alphabetical analogy of careers, then it may be familiar, but for those who are not, people are talking today about different shaped careers in terms of alphabets, right? And this is in the context of skills. So you have something called the I-shaped career, where you are just an expert in one thing, right? Like you have depth in one area and you do nothing else. A dangerous place to be in, if you ask me, in today's age, because everything is getting disrupted, right? I wouldn't recommend just having one vertical bar. The second is a horizontal line, which is where you're a bit of a jack of all trades and you have these transferable skills, becoming extremely critical. If we are basically looking at the world where we're going to be pivoting and changing so much, and because there's so much change, you need to have the right skills to actually move around, right? And there's a whole bunch of transferable skills that are critical, which are becoming important, but by themselves, again, not enough. You can't just only have transferable skills. You need to build depth with that, which comes to the shape of or the alphabet T, right? Which is an interesting element, which is a mix of horizontal skills as well as a mix of skills in a certain depth. In my view, while this is good, it's still not good enough, right? Because you are, a lot of people pivot to different domains, different industries. In my case, honestly, I've only been at T, and I wish I was at an M, which is where I could also pivot to different, different industries and so on. But I've been in education all through. So my depth is education, and my horizontal is, all of the other, transferable skills around education, right? Obviously, there's the M-shaped career, which is an ideal place to be in, right? Which is where you have multiple elements of depth that you build, along with, these transferable and horizontal skills to be able to navigate the change that we're going through. Yes, we have a question, Vinayak.
Okay, so just wanted to check, like probably in my organization, like we had been asked to go into the T-shaped type of mode. But do we logically feel that such type of T-shape will actually be helpful? And with like the point that you mentioned about M-shape, I'm still little bit worried about, like, still people are not comfortable with the T-shape and the M-shape that is coming in. So just wanted to understand, like, do you feel that having T-shape or M-shape will definitely help in the career path, or probably for the organization as a whole?
Right. So great question. I think in my personal view is that you at least need to have a T shape, right? If not an M, you can still get by with a T, which is you build a certain expertise typically in an industry, then not necessarily in a skill. And you build, a capability in that, and you build a set of horizontal that helps you move around in that industry, right? You can still get by. Although if the industry gets disrupted, then you're in a little bit of trouble, right? So I would say that T is a good place to be in. A lot of folks aren't even at T. Like, for example, the horizontal skills, skills like communication, skills like problem solving, skills like collaboration. Fundamentally, these are the skills which are transferable, and nobody has really taught us these skills, right? Whether we like it or not. I certainly wasn't taught in any of my educational programs, including my MBA. And I'll talk about my MBA experience when we move ahead. But a bare minimum would be T. M is great. M just means your ability to, your M is like an Elon Musk, right? Like, in the sense that you can move around from industries and really disrupt them, and build new industries. So M is great, but T I think is good.
Yeah, so just my understanding, probably I just wanted to clarify, like, whether what my understanding on T-shape is, like, the T that the vertical line stands for probably the technical capability that you own in any specific technology or domain that you're working upon, and the horizontal line probably like in terms of your professional skills, like how do you enhance your professional skills, like maybe like the communication, or maybe like problem solving, or all the other factors that probably you also need to take care, not only on the technical capabilities. So is my understanding correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, your understanding is right. The vertical is really the technical side, which could include industry, and the horizontal is like the skills that you mentioned, which help you kind of move. And I think to Anaga's point, yes, to some degree. Well, M, you're saying that is misleading because it doesn't explore overlaps. Yes, of course, there are some overlaps. And you're saying you started in training, but pivoted to, yeah. So I would say training, intersection of learning, design would in my view, that would come under a single vertical, maybe learning, if that's the industry. And I don't know if that's the right way to think about it, but learning design would probably be one sort of element. Tech could be a different sort of vertical with a bunch of horizontal on top of it. But feel free to come in. Okay. Any other questions on this? So we. Sorry, you were saying?
Sorry, no, I think you might be right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the larger point I'm trying to make is that you need to have both technical abilities or industry sort of depth, as well as a certain set of transferable skills, just because of the way at which the world is moving and the pivots that we need to kind of take, right? That's the point. Okay, so let's move to the last slide on the future of work, or the current state of work segment, right? Take a look at this, right? This is an interesting report created by the Burning Glass Institute, which is one of the foremost research firms which actually assess the various skills in demand in the world, in different jobs, which skills are needed, which are not, which ones are dying, And take a look at this, right? They actually did something called, they checked different skills for their durability. How durable are different skills? And durability is, lasting time, obviously, right? And you can clearly see that a bunch of the technical skills on the right-hand side, right, actually have much lower durability because there's so much disruption happening in them as compared to a bunch of other skills, right? Whether they are management, managing people, communication, ability to even things meet like deadlines, ownership, accountability, etc., clearly have much higher durability, which essentially lasts the test of time. And to me, this is the most critical slide in this entire session, because my entire career has been built on these sort of transferable skills, right? And we'll talk about that again when I move to the MBA side. But a lot of my MBA experience was not so much the academics, not so much the, the classroom sort of stuff that you learn. It was all the outside classroom skills that I had built, which have really helped me as an individual in my career. Like I learned a lot of stuff on leadership by actually managing people there. There were a bunch of challenges we had to deal with every day and so on, right? So I'll anyway come to that in a bit, but just some context. Yes, Vinayak.
So probably the x-axis is sorry, the y-axis is still not clear for me. Like what are we trying to depict over here? Like,
so the y-axis is basically a durability score. They've done some analysis on being able to put a score to how durable is a skill. So the higher the score, the more durable it is, which means it will last for a longer amount of time. And obviously the x-axis is the name of the skill. Does that help?
So do we mean to say that probably the skills on the left hand sides are more valued and should to be taken care as compared to the other skills?
More durable, right? Which means that if I have to choose about which skill to build to give me the best bang for my buck or the best bang for the effort I put in, clearly the skills on the left, right?
Okay, got it.
I mean,
Got
it'd be
it,
great to be a plumber and great to be all of that. It's just some of that may not, I guess, pay that much. But in terms of just like, if I have time and I'm looking at my learning library in my company, then, while the technical skills are important and you should spend time on them, but spending time on some of these transferable skills can actually go a very long way in your career.
So surprisingly, like the basically like welding, plumbing, probably I think this is one of the skills which we struggle to get it actually. So I think
Sure.
that is the reason why they have on the left hand side actually. I'm just trying to understand the skills actually, that
Sure.
which particular skills are probably like in terms of availability in market, or probably like you have that more durability if we have that particular skill being owned.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, superb. But yeah, other folks can also please come in, which was designed as a meeting format for a reason. So, good to have you guys come in. Okay, so that basically completes my section on the way the world of work is changing, right? And there's clearly a lot of flux and a bunch of things that are happening, right? So now let's talk about my MBA experience, right? And what happened? It was a 9 to 12 month experience, a 1 year experience in person. I was probably one of the oldest people there. So firstly, very much out of place compared to most other people. And this is typically how a traditional MBA experience works, right? Like everybody getting a job is like on the topmost priority, right? Like, but we've seen in the past that your first job is just one of the many things that exist in your entire life and career, right? It's not like we were working in 1975 where you just had 2 jobs. And for some strange reason, I don't understand why in a business school, in some of the business schools, it's only about the job. Of course, the job is important, but there's a difference between thinking about a job and thinking about a career track, or thinking about a job and thinking about skills, right? So this is typically how the pyramid works. The topmost priority is a job. If you need to get a good job, you need great academics. So that's the second priority. The network is important to some extent, so that comes third. Moments of risk, not at all important. And, we'll talk about that and how, to me, that was so different. When I say moments of risk, it means these small moments where you feel uncomfortable saying, do I want to get into that situation or do I want to stay out of it? And you're saying, you know what, I'm not very comfortable, so I'll stay out of it. But in my case, and a lot of other people I've seen who've gone on to do a lot of great things, their ability to look at that situation, they say it's a moment of opportunity and I will actually do it, even though I feel uncomfortable, does not exist, right? That's the fourth. And of course, the last is, like there's a bunch of student body experiences, etc., that take place. And most people find that, the last element to consider. So this is traditional MBA, right? On how most people will look at it. And my experience at a business school was very different, right? It was completely inverted, right? Like, firstly, I graduated out of MBA without a job. Not that I didn't get a job, but I was very conscious that I didn't want a job I was not going to be happy in or didn't feel comfortable in, or in the sense that I didn't feel inspired by. And which is this connects back to the first question that I asked you, that, like, at least for me, education was really the passion for which I was certainly excited about. And looking back, I built a career in education without having picked up a specific job, right? So that's just my story. But that sense of clarity helps. For me, leadership in the student body mattered most, because it gave me a chance to actually physically do things. The ability to actually lead a bunch of 800 alpha personalities taught me so much more about management at the workplace than any managing course would have, or any accounting course could have taught me, right? And so these experiences become so much more critical than, just the courses, right? Moments of risk were important for me. There were a bunch of moments where I felt uncomfortable, but pushed myself to say, I want to do this or I want to do that. And that those are critical. Network in some ways was at the same sort of level. And of course, academics, I'm not suggesting academics come lower, but in my view, in my case, it was definitely a little bit lower than some of the other elements, right? So this is just a glimpse of my sort of MBA experience, and contrasting that to a traditional MBA experience. Now, coming to the next part, which is, in fact, before I move to the next part, if I was to think about what I wish I had at my MBA, which I didn't get, I wish I had the opportunity to actually apply all of the learning in real time. That just did not exist. This was a bit of a vacuum, disconnected from the world. It was a bit of an echo chamber. You're going through a lot of subjects, but there was no real skill development on those subjects, right? Like, there was a lot of content and theory, but I did not know how to apply it to work. And I wish there was a way for me to connect that learning and actually apply it at the workplace, or apply it to a project, which I unfortunately didn't get. I had a great time, but that didn't exist, right? Which is why after I finished my MBA, I started my real MBA, which is a bunch of these online courses. So I graduated in 2017, and I realized that, oh my God, I'm actually at the workplace. It was a job in education, and I realized that, okay, I need to now, do a bunch of these different tasks, and the subjects that I learned were good, but they don't really help me at the workplace. And in the last, since then, in the last 3 years, I've spent a lot of my time just learning online, right? And that's one thing. So in my view, a traditional MBA learning experience is probably a one-time element. And if you go back to the future of work, you can see that it's, we're living in a very different world. You're really focused on managing grades more than anything else, because you're looking for that job. It's faculty, subjects, there's an element of peer group, a bunch of assessments. Obviously, there's a certain element of brand that matters, right? So this, in my view, encapsulates what a traditional MBA learning experience is. It's a one-time experience, and, with things. My alternative online learning experiences have taught me much, much, much more. But then I've also been a very conscious learner. So it's taught me so much more at the workplace than what an MBA did, because it's just in time. right? The ability for me to then go into doing an online program when I need something and being able to connect all of that to the workplace immediately, just, the transformation for doing things at work was very different, right? The element of learning in the flow of work, just in time, the ability to build your identity as a person, the ability to be inspired by different people who can actually connect with you online as a physical program may not be able to, the ability to engage with all kinds of content, right? In the physical world, there's only one type of content. Online has a whole variety of content. Obviously, the peer group is much more diverse because it's all over the world and the country. The ability to get feedback, right? That was the other thing that was lacking in my sort of in-person experience, is that there wasn't so much feedback. It was, again, grades, and a focus on the job. A bunch of my programs online have actually had the ability to give me peer feedback, which is a very different level of learning and a power of a community, right? Not to say that the MBA doesn't have a community, obviously a very strong alumni group and so on, but the online world also has a very strong element of community, which has taken me, which has really helped me a lot. So I'll just pause here if anybody has any questions, on this whole element of a traditional MBA as well as an alternate MBA or an alternative online experience. And Tanvi, maybe you can unshare before we move to the last section of this.
Nikhil, I had one question. The question
Tanvi,
is,
could you unshare the slides so that we can then see everybody?
Harit here.
Thanks.
So the question I had was, I think it's more of a supply and demand also when it comes to job, that, okay, you need someone who has those functional experience in these various areas, let's say accounting, finance, marketing, etc. And that can be taught better in a more in-person kind of an environment. And that's why there is a lot of supply for those institutes as well. So my question is it required to have that kind of experience? Can we not have the same kind of experience online? And any thoughts on why there is, because from an optics perspective, whether it's a recruiter or a manager in a company, you have someone who has done an ISB versus somebody who has done an online MBA. I think the perception is yet to change.
Right. So I disagree a little bit, in the sense that all of the subjects that you mentioned can be taught online and can be taught better online, right? And I've gone through accounting courses in MBA as well as accounting courses online. There is no difference. In fact, the online version has a much more relevant and a more concise version of what accounting should be, how accounting should be used at the workplace, as opposed to the history of accounting and stuff like that, right? So my point is, can accounting, marketing be taught online? Very much, if not better, depends on the program and so on, right? So that's the first piece. The second piece is, so you're right that what the MBA gave me was a language that the world understood. It really didn't give me, I had to graduate without a job, right? I didn't really take a job, and most people, there are a bunch of folks who've done the MBA program and in some ways are now figuring out what to do next, right? None of them have said, okay, I've done my MBA and it solved my life's problems. So the MBA probably just gave me a language that the world understood, right? Now, that language has significantly started to change if you know how to communicate in that language, which is not the language of online MBA, which is the language of skills. So if I'm able to tell a recruiter that I have these 5 skills and I can back it up with experience. Now, if you tell me I have an online MBA, then you're saying, okay, I've done then you're just saying I've done accounting courses online versus doing accounting courses in person, right? But that's not the point. The point is, can I talk to you about the skills that I've developed? And here is the proof and the experiences that I have gone through to show you that this is my skill level. Every recruiter today is looking for skills. They probably don't yet know how to put that into a language. And that again is a separate opportunity, which is how do you create a recruiting opportunity on skills, right? But the MBA doesn't equate to skills. It just equates to a language people understand. which is now changing. So so I would just think about how I can position myself where I'm showcasing skills and experiences and projects and moments of risk and discomfort and the fact that I've done 10 other things more than what somebody would do with just an MBA degree. I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other question on this segment? Traditional MBA versus an alternative MBA. No other question? Okay, let's go ahead. If you have any questions, please do come in. So I think, Tanvi, please let us know what is the right time to talk about at least the AMP, right? Because I understand that the AMP, the focus is completely on skills, actually. It's not so much on subjects and content. There's a whole method of being able to deliver and track and position yourselves in the context of skills, especially building that horizontal layer, which certainly the MBA college didn't teach me, the transferable segments, right? So whenever you want to come in, just let me know. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, so this is my view. Yeah, Vinayak, you have a question or a point?
So on the previous slide, so just wanted to understand like the skills that you are planning to share, like in the newer version of the MBA. Have you done a tie-up with the other universities which you mentioned over there? Like, can you please go to the previous slide?
Yeah. No. So these are so this is my journey. So these are I've done programs from these 4-5 different places.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
So this is just a reference. And trust me, when I go and tell somebody I have, I don't go and tell somebody I've done a Maven course. Nobody will understand that. But I go and tell somebody that I actually know how to. I actually know the skill of product strategy. Which is what I learned at Maven, and here are the projects that I did, and here's an example of how I solved product strategy. So I want to talk about the fact that I have a skill called product strategy. Not saying I've got a course from Maven.
Got it.
Right.
So Nikhil, actually, like you rightly mentioned that probably any particular course, maybe like a traditional module or maybe like online reference that we go ahead, correct? So one of the major problem that I see personally is like we are able to learn, like I'm able to learn the skills associated for that particular technology which I've learned, but application is always a problem. For example, like I completed maybe my PMP in like 2020, and after that I was not able to apply the skills or probably the references that are there associated with maybe like the tools and techniques associated with PMP, correct? So that's always a concern in any problem. Maybe like it might be a traditional approach or maybe it might be an online approach actually. So probably I think if we have some different ways ahead in terms of actually applying the tools and techniques, I think that would be the best approach.
Yeah. So my recommendation would be that from an application standpoint, I certainly learned a lot more online because I had the freedom of applying it to my work.
Okay.
Right. I have the ability of learning something, applying it, discussing it with my peers, getting feedback, etc. Right. So one is which kind of a program helps you apply in an easier way. And at least for me, an online program was much more impactful from a practice application standpoint. That is one. But having said that, there is a certain intrinsic motivation you need to have to learn. Right. What the MBA also does on offline MBAs, you go, you get a degree and you move out. How much you learn, you don't learn, nobody really sort of cares. In the world of online, the dirty secret of online learning is those who have intrinsic motivation to learn can go 10 times more by learning online because there's everything that you need to learn is there online with the right learning experiences. The challenge is, do you have intrinsic motivation to learn? And that to me is the biggest sort of skill to unlock, which is the ability to learn, right? And we'll come to that in the last part, which is what I'll talk about. But if you're going to be pivoting so much and changing jobs so much and changing careers so much, you can't really rely on just a one-time experience, right? You have to be able to upgrade, but that upgradation has to happen with an intrinsic motivation to know how to learn. And if you're able to do that, then at least in my view, and I've been lucky to be able to build that. The online experiences have been much more impactful to the workplace, to application, and to skills.
Okay.
Right?
Perfect. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
So in my view, what will matter for a career in the 21st century, right? Like goes back to what we spoke about. First, you have to be curious. There's a guy called Naval Ravikant. Some of you may have heard of him. He's an angel investor, launched Angel List and a bunch of other companies in the US. And he has a very interesting quote, which he says is that for you to truly outcompete somebody, see, at the end of the day, we're all in a world of competition, whether we like it or not. To truly outcompete somebody else, you have to, what you're interested in has to feel like play. It has to feel like you're obsessed about it. If somebody is obsessed about something 24/7 and thinking about it 24/7, that person is obviously going to know much more, learn much more, show much more than somebody else. So this connects back to my first question, which is, what are you genuinely curious about? Like, what do you keep, like, what keeps you awake at night from an interest standpoint? Right. So in my case, I'm obsessed about improving the quality of education. I'm obsessed about, like, I think about it at night. I talk to people about it. I write about it, right? I don't need a degree to prove to people about it, right? It comes out in the obsession. So we have to, in today's world with so much changing, to be able to stand out, there are some intrinsic abilities that you need to build, which is this ability to be curious about something, fundamentally interested in something. It could be anything, right? And combine curiosity with the ability to learn online is the most powerful equation that exists, right? The second is taking charge of your own growth, right? This was something which I learned, which is that your manager is not responsible for your growth. You are responsible for your own growth, right? How does growth really happen? It happens in those moments of risk. Growth is about moving from, is about getting uncomfortable. It's about stretching, right? It's about doing things you've never done. That's how you grow. So when you face those moments of risk and you face those moments of discomfort, do you back away from it? Or do you say, let me jump in and try it and take it from there, right? And that's when taking charge of your own growth comes in. It's not like your manager is going to come and serve something on your plate and say, hey, here's your next job or here's your next promotion. The third, building a niche, right? We're an 8 billion or plus population in the world. How do you build you have to stand out. Specialization or being seen as a expert in something matters. You can't just be, it's good to be a generalist. It's good, which is why I said it's good to have the transferable skills, but you also need to be known to be good in something, right? And it connects back to curiosity. You can't force yourself to be good in something if you're not genuinely interested in it, right? The fourth, something called riding S-curves. This is essentially the idea that, if you think of your career like, in the form of these S-curves, where your one job takes you through one kind of an S-curve, and then you transition to another sort of opportunity as another S-curve, right? And these transitions happen through curiosity, right? Where you start, you start, you scale, you execute, and you move to a new opportunity and so on. So you have to think of this as like surfing, right? In one's career. And the final is really, I mean, this is a general point, but staying vital, right? At the end of the day, it's about your mental well-being and health, and it's about balancing your own expectations on what is good and what is not, right? Like, are you comparing yourself to your peers and feeling unhappy every day about it? Or are you comparing yourself to yourself, right? And how does that sort of work? So I think with that, just come to the end of at least some things that I wanted to talk about in terms of the future of work, skills, the traditional MBA versus online, and some of the capabilities I think are critical for success. But happy to open this up for questions. And any questions, comments, etc. Please come in. Yeah, Tanvi.
Yes, Nikhil, before we talk about the accelerated program, if you could take a minute to talk about, what we do at Harappa, with our corporates and campuses, that really helps online learning happen in different ways. I think it.
Yeah. So listen,
Context. Yeah.
listen. So I have an engineering degree. I studied in an all boys boarding school. I had the worst possible social skills you can imagine. When I went to college, I could barely speak to anybody. I wasn't trained on interacting with people. I'm anyway an introvert by nature. I was an engineer. I learned technical things. I could barely speak in a public forum. I didn't know how to be warm with people. I didn't know how to, you could greet people, except how do you build sort of relationships, right? A lot of this I have personally learned in the last 4 years through Harappa because of this focus on the curriculum on these social, cognitive, and behavioral skills. It's that top layer of transferable skills which can be taught, but nobody teaches you. Has anybody ever taught you to be a manager? Never. Has anybody ever taught you how to think about solving a problem? Never. But these are skills that can be taught. I don't know why they're not taught in our education system. But you can learn them. There's a curriculum that can be built, and you can put people through a structured program to learn those skills, right? And today, my ability to have a conversation with all of you and run a presentation like this or whatever has come because I've learned these skills in a deliberate way. So I think the biggest thing that Harappa brings to the table is the focus on these transferable skills, which are far more durable than any other skill that will last a lifetime, and a very structured way of building it with a lot of practice, peer group, the whole online learning element, which has to be experiential. That's one capability Harappa brings. I think the second capability is the ability to think about careers, right? There's a very, very dedicated focus on careers versus jobs, right? Job you'll get, right? But what happens after that? How do you think about a career? How do you think about yourself? How do you think about what you're good at? How do you think about, building curiosity, right? You're building yourself for a marathon of a career, not just first job, right? So the focus on career and how to think about a career and how to build career skills is the second piece. I think that's tremendous. And I think the third is just in at least in this element of the EMP, which I'm sure you'll talk about, is a focus on these three pillars, right? This element of a focus on product, data, and business, which essentially, while they are again verticals, they also today can become horizontals, right? Product again is applicable across industries, business across industries, data across industries. So I think that's what Harappa brings to the table.
Thank you, Nikhil. So also just a quick introduction. Harappa was started by Dr. Pramod Sinha, who was also the founding dean of Indian School of Business, and Shresi Singh, who's been in journalism and has also been part of Vedika Scholars Program. And it of course started with the idea of helping learners build these transferable skills. So over the past 4 years, we worked with learners across corporates, across different career stages. And we've worked with campus students.
I've worked now with 500 companies in the country, 500 corporates in this company at all levels, from CXOs, CXO -1, senior managers, VPs, first-time managers, first-time joinees, right? Every corporate today is crying, saying our people don't have these transferable skills, right? From CXOs to MDs, to first-time managers, to senior managers, to VPs, to first-time joinees. To me, that is an opportunity to be unlocked if you're able to really build that capability. And I'm talking because we work with so many companies. It is the biggest problem today that companies are facing, the inability to build transferable skills so people can grow themselves and so that they can then grow their company.
Yes, thanks, Nikhil. So, in our experience of working with more than 700,000 learners and 500 clients, on a B2B model, we've realized that, there really needs to be some program that can help professionals invest in their learning at a cheaper cost without having the time and the money and the expenses of doing a full-time MBA program, something that works and helps them practice. And that's what we're trying to do at the Harappa School of Leadership with the Accelerated Management Program. So it's a 6-month live online learning program. We have weekend and weekday classes, which happen after the work hours. And we focus on, teaching cross-functional skills that also have elements of practice in projects. And we have some really great practitioners, academicians, like people who are who are practitioners and academicians both. We have Siddharth Menon, who teaches marketing. He's led the marketing for Epigamia. We have Vibhor Sharma, who's been part of he's an investor right now, and he was part of Talent Edge. He heads the talent group. And of course, we have many more, 10, 11 such faculty members who've been associated with the Accelerated Management Program. The idea is to help build that M-shaped career, where one can continue to work in their own work area, function, or even think about a pivot, but also get hands-on learning experience, guided learning experience through group projects, through these academicians on different concepts like data, business, strategy, product, finance, marketing, so on and so forth. So that's the idea that we're trying to implement through the Accelerated Management Program. And we have people, we've done 2 cohorts in the past. So we do have a very diverse cohort of participants across different career stages. And we have people that come from a product background, from a manufacturing background, from finance background. So all the elements that we get to experience in an MBA program, we're trying to change that through this 6-month online live program. That helps people build better networks, without having to spend that time networking in a full-time MBA. So that's a little bit about what the Accelerated Management Program looks like. We will, of course, share a brochure with all of you. And we are hosting another session on the 7th and 8th with Dr. Pramat Raj Sinha himself. Again, he was the founding dean of Indian School of Business. Back in early 2000s, when there was no one-year MBA program, he was one of the early deans to bring in the disruption of, consolidating a 2-year program into a 1-year. And now we're trying to do something very different that works for, learners who want, more opportunities to learn through online. And I think, you'll get to hear more about his idea and his vision about the Accelerated Management Program in the coming week. So do follow us on, on LinkedIn. We will be hosting more such webinars with people like Nikhil, who talk about their experiences or different trending topics in the industry, and hope to stay engaged and meet again in the future webinars. Nikhil, if I've forgotten something, please feel free to add elements.
No, I think you've covered it all. I think Vinayak, you have a question. I'm happy to answer any more questions as well if anybody wants. I have some time.
So basically, like probably maybe I'm just taking care of the talent part for the company. Maybe we can discuss it later on. But probably I think the aspiring manager program, because probably at one particular stage, we definitely feel that there's some sort of dead end for a people who have been into doing technical stuff, maybe like 10 or 15 years, and then probably it is a time when probably they feel that difficulty in terms of moving to management role. So probably I think I'm looking for some sort of cohort for my organization as a whole, wherein probably Harappa team maybe can have some sort of cohort run for us, and then probably guide this particular people who are at the dead end situations, like basically turning from a technical role to a management role, and then what is jointly we can assist them actually. So I request if one of you probably can connect with me later, and then we can take it ahead actually.
Sure, we'll be happy to. We'll be in touch for that.
Sure, thanks.
Super. Any other questions that I can answer? Any other questions that you have? Anything else I can help with?
So I have a question, Nikhil.
Yes.
So I find, online courses, one thing that I found a little challenging is how do you build a community? In terms of discussion or taking it forward, because the difference that I have found between offline and online is that in an offline course, you do build a network of 5, 10 people with whom you continue the, lateral learning or ongoing learning. I've always found it challenging. Would love to listen to your experience.
Right. So great question. And the way I think, so firstly, I think, again, if you know how to do it, the ability to use the internet to build a network is much more powerful than just 5 or 10 people that you meet. The question is, how does one do it, right? And networking can't be forced. It has to come from within. And for it to come from within, it has to come from, again, an area of interest and an identity that you as an individual are building for yourself. Right? In my case, I am deeply passionate about education, deeply passionate about learning. So I'm anyway just curious on the internet of who's doing what in learning, right? I'm just curious. Like, I want to know more about learning. I want to know more about education. I keep reading things up. But the moment I resonate with somebody's point of view or somebody's thing, because I'm doing it for myself, not because I'm looking to network, I ping that person saying, hey, firstly, I have a background in education. This is what I've done. I found your article very interesting. I'd love to have a chat. And today, everybody responds on LinkedIn, right? If you approach them with the right context by proving to them that you actually have a similar interest as theirs and you can back it up with some experiences that you have, nobody says, no, I don't mind connecting, right? So I've used that as a way to build a significant so-called network, for whatever that's worth, online. But it's come from my intrinsic ability to want to learn about the space I'm interested in, right? Now, so I would only urge you to think about starting first from what is the area that you are fundamentally interested in, and what really gives you that kick, and what do you want to talk to people about from a similar interest standpoint, and you'll have enough and more people on that background wanting to connect.
No, helpful. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, so I think thanks, Nikhil. I think what I take away is he's speaking about shared interests in a learning community. What we've also been doing really well, along with building shared interests, is shared experiences. Whether it's the accelerated management program or other programs at Harappa, right? I think whenever we take a group of individuals through some common shared experiences, that really builds the community together towards some common learning experience or a common purpose. And that's what we've seen has a great impact. Like, for example, I'll probably share some examples from our ongoing cohorts at the AMP. We have mixers, in-person mixers, which allows us to bring in shared experiences apart from the live element. We also have a lot of group assignments, where like there's a specific problem statement, like a business problem statement that's given, for the participant, that allows us to bring in an opportunity for the group to really solve problems together and create that shared knowledge transfer and shared experiences. And we've seen that the culture of a learning group, is something that really drives the program well, because there is some common shared experiences. We might not find these shared experiences in a completely asynchronous course-based format, but this really brings the alumni community together and networking, without having to force people to interact with each other, through bringing in shared knowledge, shared interests, and shared experiences together.
Thank you.
Great. Any other
Of course,
questions?
Of course, Nikhil, I do agree to your point that on a common interest, forums like LinkedIn can be very helpful. I mean, I got my first $100,000 job through LinkedIn, so I cannot deny that. But the question is a little more specific, and maybe I also need to work on it. Is once you've identified your area of interest and you do an online course, how do you continue to engage with some of the people who are really interested in that online course? One of the challenge of online format is that a lot of people are there just because probably they're not very clear and they just join that course, and they get clarity in due course of time. So shortlisting is a challenge. In a physical course, it's very easy to shortlist who are the people with whom you want to connect and probably take it forward in your area of interest. But yeah, but I get your point. Maybe I think one good way to look at it is how do coders interact when they're sitting far away and still work on a common platform, which is an open platform. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Any other things I can help with? Okay, no questions, then thank you everyone. Appreciate you taking out time on a Saturday evening to join, and wish you all the best in your careers in the 21st century. I'm sure each of you will be successful. Let us know if we can be of help in any way. And if you'd like to take forward the interest in the AMP, we'd be more than happy to have a chat with you.
Nikhil,
Thanks.
thank you so much for a wonderful session, Tanvi. Thanks for taking your time and putting this together. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Nikhil and team.
Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you for joining us. Have a good day. Bye-bye.